Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am so excited about my next guest. I have Craig Fisher here. We actually got connected, believe it or not, through Clubhouse. We're
Yeah.
also connected on LinkedIn, but as I tell you guys all the time, Clubhouse is where it's at. You meet phenomenal people, such as my guest today. And so I'm really excited to have him join us and share with us his wisdom and expertise about recruiting, such among other things. So before we get into that topic, I want to give him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Thanks, Lachelle. Yes, we met on Clubhouse, and it's been great having a weekly hangout there with you. And I follow you around to some other rooms, and I've seen you in some of my rooms. And so it's been great getting to know you. I am a 25-year veteran of the recruiting space, and I help employers attract talent better through my
Mhm.
company, Talent Net Media. And I help job seekers, recruiting teams, and sales teams create a better personal brand and get found through a thing that I do called LinkedIn SEO. So I help people optimize their LinkedIn profile with the right things in the right places to get found on searches for the things that they want to be known as a subject matter expert for. Right. And so I also host the largest recruitment conference in the Southern United States, based in Texas, called Talent Net Live. And we do that twice a year, usually in person at a large employer's headquarters.
Mhm.
We've got a lot of those here in Texas, once a year in Dallas and once a year in Austin. But
Mhm.
this, since mid 2020, we've had to go virtual, and so we've hosted a couple of virtual events. And now, because we've had such success doing that, we use the Hop-In platform. A lot of other companies, vendors, and organizations are coming to us to say, hey, can you produce our conference? Because we do a really good job of it. So, side hustle number five.
I
I'm
love
also, yeah, I'm also currently the CEO of a personalized job board for engineers to find remote work in software development called knack.io, KNACK.io. So,
love that. So
among
this
many
is
things.
yeah,
Yes.
I love that. I'm always for multiple streams of income with the family our
Mhm.
size. You
Yeah,
have to have money coming different places.
that's right.
Okay. So I love the thing about the recruiting because so many people have been displaced with this pandemic. They have to reinvent themselves. They don't know how to present maybe the skills that they acquired in one industry, transferring them to others. So the first question is based on that, for some of the viewers who are trying to make a transition, what are some ways that they can begin to promote themselves, so to speak, in terms of trying to reinvent or go into a different industry?
Yeah, so I call this a pivot career, right? When you're trying to make a pivot to do something different because what you've been doing either isn't working for you anymore, or you're not making the kind of money you need, or there's just not jobs available, or you don't like it. Whatever the reason is, I try to envision a career path like being around a big lake. Okay. If you're going to do something different, you're not going to jump across the lake to do it, right? You're going to go tangentially around the lake. And so you start with things that are similar to or benefit from what you did before. So if you're here, think of who are the vendors or customers that this company you were with before or this job that you did before dealt with and could benefit from your knowledge about that organization or field of expertise. Okay.
Mhm.
So don't just jump all the way across because you're not going to get paid very much for that most of the time. And you're going to have a high learning curve. So
Mhm.
use the skills that you've got and the knowledge that you've got to leverage careers going around like this to get to a goal maybe over there.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And so the next thing is, you have the people that are well versed in some of their skills, but they're like, well, I don't know what to charge or knowing their
Mhm.
worth. There's that element of not being confident.
Right.
So I'm sure you deal with that a lot. So what are some key things they should remember in order to maintain their level of confidence?
Yeah, so the first thing to do is to start writing about what you know, okay? And so you're going to leverage what you know, and maybe you're also going to write about your journey to learn something new, okay? So if you're trying to be the expert of this over here, you
Mhm,
don't just start saying you're an expert because that's fairly transparent, right? You don't have any experience. So
mhm,
so I did this when I started to teach myself how to code back in the 90s because I wanted to hang out in the places where software engineers were hanging out online and contribute, right?
mhm,
And be a good part of the network versus just trying to sell something like, hey, we're hiring. It would be five gives, right? Like, a question or a comment or a contribution or whatever, and only one ask. So I use that 5-to-1 give to ask content ratio. So start
mhm,
writing about things that could help other people both
mhm,
learn from your journey and from your expertise. You can use LinkedIn as your blog. It's a great place for it.
mhm,
You can write all your articles there and then do a short video about what you've written, post that directly to LinkedIn with a pretty good introduction of texts for that video and a link to your article. Um,
mhm,
and if you do that a couple of times a week to get started, pretty soon that thing that you're writing about learning and your journey, people are going to start coming to ask you about how to do that thing. It doesn't take very long. I mean, you can do this in a matter of weeks. And because you're studying that thing in order to write these articles and make these videos
mhm.
and talking about how you're learning about it, pretty soon you're the SME that people are looking towards. And that's a great way to start building your confidence. Don't just say you're an expert at something. Talk
Mhm.
about your journey learning it.
Love that. That's some great tips right there. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So, we talk about your network determines your net worth.
Mhm.
So, what are some key things that we can share with the audience regarding networking? Because a lot of people are like, we're not live. I don't know about all these different platforms. We met on Clubhouse. So, what are some tips to get people to get in front of the right people when it comes to networking?
Right. So a couple of things. Build your network, right? Accept all those invitations, even if they're from, insurance brokers or people that, are certainly out to sell you something. Definitely they're very good networkers, right? And so if they like and share any of your content, and you can even introduce them maybe to people that might benefit them, they'll do the same for you. And they've got a big network because they're actively using marketing automation software and all kinds of tricks to build their network, and they're probably good at it. So it's okay to connect with people. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, doesn't make any noise. That's what happens to your posts if you don't have a network to see, right? And so you got to build. You've got to actively connect with, and so I suggest always starting with 5 companies that you might want to work for. Okay. And as you're on your journey to get a job with that company, right, and you're learning about something you want to write about, do some research, right? Research the number one company and do a comparison to their 4 top competitors about the processes around that field of expertise you want to be an SME in, and then write some suggestions in your article about what they could possibly do better, and then post that on LinkedIn with your video and tag all the people in that organization and those other organizations that you might want to work for in the department, the recruiters, hiring managers. Tag them and say, hey, I hope you don't mind, I'm doing some research, I'm trying to learn about this, I love your companies, and I just wanted you to see this.
Mhm,
Keep doing that. Put it under a job, right, that you create for yourself on your LinkedIn profile. Start an LLC, costs less than $600 on legalzoom.com, right? And call it something that's not too specific, right? Sort of generic, so it could pivot to do other things. For mine, it's called TalentNet LLC. That's the corporate name. I DBA as TalentNet Media, but that could be a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we help employers with their employer brand, and we do brand audits to see how their talent attraction is going versus their competitors. And I write case studies about it, and I tag their competitors when I do it, and then I get business from their competitors. So there are real creative ways to connect with the right people.
That's very good. I mean, I hope everybody's taking notes. This is some good content. So, I love the fact that, you just are able to tie all these things together. So often, a lot of people do this, do that, nothing is cohesive. And it kind of makes it even a harder job to maintain that because there's no cohesion. So for somebody, I love how you have them come back, bringing it all back to their platform, to where they can begin to take ownership. So for somebody who is recreating themselves or starting something different in an industry, this is something that may not have ever been seen before, a trailblazer, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it that they really should be trying to communicate to when it comes to putting themselves out there with different organizations and companies? Because the people can find any name, but
Mm-hmm.
when you're creating something from nothing, who would be the best person to talk to about that?
So a few things, right? Find some people who are doing what you're trying to do well. Okay. Find some good examples on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, places like that. And the great thing about Clubhouse is, everyone has their Twitter account and their Instagram account connected, and most people have their LinkedIn account, written um, in their bios. And
Mhm.
so go to Clubhouse and go to some of those rooms where people are moderating around a subject that you're interested in, doing some work in, and look at the people who are doing it good, right? And model yourself after them. What do they do? And just do all those things they do. You might not have time for it, right? It might be difficult at first, but nothing happens until you start, right? You don't hit any of the balls you don't swing at. So you get started and you start modeling yourself after people who are doing a similar thing that you'd like to do. And then go find someone in an organization that you want to work for, right? That is doing that sort of thing well, and model yourself after them. Follow them around, like their posts, comment on them, get known by them, show up in their peripheral vision, tag them in your stuff multiple times before you ever reach out and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes for phone coffee, right? Or Zoom coffee? I'd love to, just talk to you about your job.
Mhm. That's great. That's some great insight. And I love the whole concept of the give, then the ask. You
Yeah.
know, um, a lot of people have this kind of scarcity, fear type mindset around that. Can you explain that concept and why that's effective? Because a lot of the people, especially now, coming from, I don't want to say it's desperation, but
Mhm.
it's just that uncertainty. They had a lot of confidence or meaning behind the roles that they played, and now they're ripped away from them. So
Yeah.
they are kind of having that, nervousness about giving so much before the ask. So
Mhm.
explain the value with that.
Yeah. So if you have a failure, right, of any kind, right, if your job got evaporated, and COVID got you laid off, or you got fired, or you didn't do a good job, whatever, just deal with that first. Admit that to yourself and say, okay, and then write down all the things that you could have and should have done better or differently. And if it was not your fault at all, great. Write down all your grievances, get them out of your head. Okay, no problem, because you have to move on. There's just no choice. And one thing I will absolutely tell you is, no matter how dark it gets, the sun always comes up. It always does. So there never is a lowest point. I can tell you that, because you should always be climbing higher, no matter what. Now, the 5-to-1 give to ask ratio is really the 80-20 principle. If you compliment someone 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time you ask them for a favor, or you need something from them, or maybe you need them to do something a little differently than the way they're doing it. This works for employees, spouses, children, and your network. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you give, which means write something or post something that you found on Harvard Business Review or whatever that might help your audience do their job better. Okay.
Mhm.
There's one give. Write a funny post that might bring inspiration. There's another give. Post a meme or a photo of yourself with some wisdom behind it or a story about yourself. Okay. There's another. There are several types of gives you can do. Do 5 of those for every one time you say, hey, by the way, I'm looking for a job, or could you refer me to someone in this organization, or take a look at my, podcast and give me some feedback, whatever that is. 5 gives for every one ask will get you in favor with your network and make you a good network citizen who is contributing rather than just asking all the time.
Love that. That's great advice. Now, so when you talked about helping people with LinkedIn,
Mhm.
because that's the whole beast in itself. You've got all these platforms, different algorithms. So, talk to us about what we're not doing right with LinkedIn that we need to fix.
Yeah, the main thing with LinkedIn, and this is, I mean, it's so sorry that it has to work this way, but it does. So
Mhm.
you need to, when you post something, use video direct to LinkedIn, unless you're trying to build a YouTube channel, which, that's fine. It's just hard to do. I say post your video 3 minutes or less directly to LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and write something good about it in the preview text, right? The part that you write in, and it can be several paragraphs. Use hashtags there. Tag
Mhm.
1 or 2 people in that intro text. Okay. Then post your video, and then immediately like your own video and comment on your own video with a link to some other content of your own. Okay. Hey, here's another thing that I wrote that you might be interested in, or whatever, and tag a few people there too.
Mhm.
Okay. And then go, send a message to a few of your friends and say, hey, can you go check out this post and, give me a like or a comment? I'd appreciate it. You can also make a pod, which is a text group on LinkedIn of several friends where you just post links to the posts that you're doing on LinkedIn. And when that happens, your pod can go click on that link and like and share and comment. When they do this, then their networks see it and the algorithm kicks in that there's a conversation happening here. And that's when it starts showing
Mm.
your post to the news feed in general.
Love that. That's good because I tell you, everything changes at a moment's notice. I mean,
That's right.
I was not prepared for Clubhouse, and
Yeah.
how that got us really in this Clubhouse zone. I feel like I've been eating, sleeping, and breathing in Clubhouse. So I love that. So let's say follow up. This is always key. So, you're talking about recruiting. People are getting in front of the right people, having this mindset of making the right connections. What is the proper way that we should be following up in order to maintain those relationships?
hmm So anyone that's done sales or recruiting, and I say we're all selling or we're all recruiting all the time, right? We're all recruiting our next job or our next, opportunity. Um, Anyone that's done that has a pretty good clock in their head of the people they should be keeping up with. But I say make a spreadsheet, put it in Google, use a ticker of some kind to remind you that every so often you should tag these people in something or send these people just a nice note saying, hey, was just thinking about you, hope you're well. That sort of thing keeps you in good graces with lots of people. And the other thing is, this is really easy, but so few people do it. When LinkedIn or Facebook tells you somebody's celebrating an anniversary, got a new job, a promotion, a new job title, or it's their birthday, write something like every time. And that's just another way to show up in people's peripheral vision, but it's also being a good person and it makes you feel better. It doesn't take long, right? Do it
Mhm.
first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening or on your lunch break, and just do a few at a time. And that's good follow up too.
Love that. These are some great tips. So, You're into the multiple streams of income. You've got a lot of different hats, So, somebody who has achieved the success that you have, what are some things that you do in your daily routine that one allow you to be in a position to notice the opportunities that are out
Mhm.
there? Because sometimes we can get tunnel vision. So, how do you maintain the flexibility with seeing the opportunities and then the disciplines that just help you to be successful in what you do every day?
So this is interesting. I, I don't actively look for employment, right? I've got a couple of companies that I run, and I'm an advisor to several tech companies in the HR space, and so I don't actively seek employment. But what I do is I monitor the job postings of the companies and the types of work that I want to do and work for, right? So if I'm trying to get an advisory post with XYZ company, I monitor all of their blog posts and all of their job openings. When I see something that's similar to the kind of work that I could help them with, right, I make sure to tap in with those people and tag them in something that is relevant to that kind of work. And then they might say, hey, could you help us find someone for this, or could you help us get this started while we're trying to hire for this position, that sort of thing. I also take job interviews. I don't very often take the job, but I can always say, hey, now I understand the job. I know a lot of people. I have a big network. I can help you refer someone, that sort of thing. And that's almost as good to a recruiter as getting someone who can interview for a job. And so, there's no reason not to take a job interview, even if you think it's a job you don't want. You can still help that company out.
Mm, that's great. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I think also, and then just knowing the pulse of what's going on. I mean, I haven't interviewed in I don't know how long for a job. So
Yeah.
just knowing what the new trends are, and same thing with like people having resumes or, whatever the trends are with things changing. I think that's good to be mindful of that. So that's amazing. I mean, you really, have some great insights and wisdom about the ways that you do things. So when you have opportunities, because a lot of times we kind of, I don't know, we just kind of put ourselves in a box. We think opportunities come always the same way, or, we gravitate towards certain circles because we think that's where the opportunity is. So, what advice would you give people about really being able to see actually how opportunities form, in the industries that they
Mhm.
may be interested in?
So payment comes in lots of different forms, right? Um, Influencers, for instance, don't necessarily always get paid cash, but they get paid in goods, right? They like a product, they talk about the product a lot, they wear the product and take pictures of the product, and the product reaches out to them and says, "Hey, can we pay you to do some more of this, or send you some product to do more of this?" So, there are lots of ways to get paid. You can have a pay site that pays, directly to Instagram or various other, not Instagram, but PayPal or various other types of, payment centers, and just offer some gated content that is, really good, and then advertise it. Advertising on Facebook is cheap, right? Create a list of the people who you'd want to see your advertisement, and then go into Facebook's ad manager and put the list in the ad manager and advertise to those people about your skills, or about the type of thing that you've got a paywall for. Payment comes in lots of ways. You don't have to be locked into the W-2, you know,
Mm-hmm.
80-hour work week syndrome. There are lots of ways to get paid.
Hmm. I love that. And so, my next question is what books do you read or podcasts do you listen to? Because
Mhm.
it's quite clear about your clarity. This is something that a lot of people would love to have, but they are just not keen on knowing exactly what their message is, how they help, what solutions they provide. And you have that down. So, what are some books or podcasts that you would recommend to the audience?
So I'll tell you that anything that James Clear does is worth your time first and foremost. He wrote the book Atomic Habits,
Mm-hmm.
and he's prolific on Twitter. He has a great podcast. You know, follow James Clear. Start there, and then Seth Godin's great, but really, I like things that you can incrementally improve yourself on every day. And Atomic Habits is one of those life changing things that I really like. And then my buddy right here who wrote Redefining HR, Lars Schmidt, has a
Mm-hmm.
great podcast
Mm-hmm.
about just work in general, the world of work. And he interviews some very influential people. He has been the head of recruitment for National Public Radio. He's done work with SpaceX. He's a really interesting guy. And he and I occasionally do a podcast together called the Cool Tools Show.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do pop ups on Clubhouse as well. So go check out my buddy Lars.
That is awesome. So, we're approaching the end of the interview, and you mentioned your event that you're having
Mm-hmm.
virtually. So, my question is, this is something that was a live event, and talk to the audience about, what the event entails, but how you were able to maintain the structure of the event, but then just transform it because it had to be virtual. What things did you have to go through in order to accomplish that? Because I think a lot of times we stop ourselves. It's like, oh, we've always done it this way for years. So,
Mm-hmm.
how were you able to make that transition?
Yeah, so this is an event for HR, recruiting, talent acquisition, and a lot of job seekers attend as well because it's recruiting and TA folks talking to each other about the best, methods to attract talent, onboard people, do employer branding better, all the technical aspects and tools that we use in order to do that. But it's great for job seekers because they get to come listen to how recruiters think, right? And the types of things they look for in job candidates and the methods they use to find people. So we get a mix of both. And so I felt very good about the fact because we broadcast our live event in the past and always do run video on most of it and replay this stuff. And so why couldn't we just do that only for the time being instead of having to all be in one place with the Zoom technology that we have today. And we use a platform called Hopin, which is really intimate, cool, really cool networking, virtual, vendor expos, things like that. Um, why couldn't we just gather from where we are for the time being,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper, right? You don't have to buy coffee for everyone and lunch, right?
Yes,
And
good.
and build a stage and all these things, and it's easier for people from all over the world. In the last one, I kicked off my event with a crew from South Africa talking about
Wow.
global recruitment. So I feel like the opportunity was a special one and an easy way to pivot if you just keep a good attitude about it.
Love that. Love that. Well, we just want to thank you so much for all your insight and wisdom. And I encourage those who are watching to reach out to you. So, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, talentnetlive.com is my website. You can contact me through talentnetlive.com. I'm also at Fish Dogs on Instagram and Twitter. And my personal site is craigfisher.info, where you can book me to speak at your event or host your conference or host your webinar, things like that. And I'm pretty easy to find. I do that LinkedIn SEO thing. So if you just Google Craig Fisher, you'll find me.
I love that. And so, in conclusion, what final words would you like to share with the audience? Oh, it looks like we might have lost him. He actually is in Texas, and they are dealing with storms and power outages and things of that nature currently. So, we were really thrilled that we were able to connect for this interview. So we will give it a couple seconds and see if he is able to reconnect with us. And if you guys have any questions, any insights, I really encourage you to reach out to Craig because he is very knowledgeable in this area. And we got him on another. I figured I was explaining to everybody about the power outages and stuff like that. So,
Yep.
with me, I am so used to all kinds of things happening. So, it doesn't frazzle me at all. Just my household has prepared me for I don't know how many things. So, this technology is nothing. So, I was asking before we got diverted here. What final words would you like to share with the audience before you leave today?
Yeah. You know, everybody has to be resilient these days, and it's not even an option anymore. So go easy on yourself, right? And just think about what are the alternative ways that I can have a great life that maybe I haven't thought about before, because the 9 to 5 ain't all that sometimes.
Love that. So this is great. You guys, I encourage you to reach out to Craig. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll be sure that he gets those. And we want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. And again, go back, watch the replay, take some notes and implement these things. I love the guests that come on here because they're about action. They are doing the things that they are actually telling us about. And if you want to have a change, you want to make changes in your life, begin to implement. Don't just collect a bunch of information and never use it. So again, Craig, we just want to thank you so much. And it's a joy to see you in person. Okay. We hear each other on the platform, but it's so nice to meet you in person.
Same here, Lachelle. Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful day. We will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for watching today.